Talk 360. Talk 360. For in-depth analysis on the week's news with Latif.
Freddie Jackson right here on 98.4 Capital FM. Good afternoon, and how are you doing? Lovely weather in Nairobi. Wherever you are, we're hoping that you're having some pleasant weather. In the studio, Eric Latif right here. Talk 360 begins right now. And in the studio this afternoon, we are joined by the Minister for Education, the Honorable Mutula Kilonzo. Mutula, thank you very much for coming, and it's good to have you on radio after so many years.
No, you were very clever. You made the invitation on the eve of my birthday, and since today is my birthday, I decided to be polite, humble, and very, very, very friendly, partly because God has blessed me, and there is nothing better that I could have done than to come and share with your listeners my experiences, my opinions. Some of them may differ with those opinions, but that's okay.
That's a very great honor to have you here on your birthday, and happy birthday.
Thank you.
And very many more returns.
Thank you.
How old are you turning?
I need a calculator. I'm not quite sure. But
probably we should give you a calculator.
It's my wife who reminded me. She called me from Malindi with a family,
yes,
friends who she's with, visiting a church, and they sang me a song, Happy Birthday. Yeah. So I remembered, and it is indeed my birthday. But, once we finish, I'll check on my calculator and tell you how old I am.
Congratulations, nonetheless, Mutula Kilonzo.
Thank you.
You recently moved from the justice docket into the education docket, and already you have your work cut out for you.
Yes, I have.
Teachers are going on strike unless you do something in the next couple of days. You basically have less than 40 days to avert a teacher strike.
Eric, I would like to tell you that I'm in the Ministry of Education. I'm like a fish in water. I'm enjoying myself. I understand the issues driving the teachers. It was very unfortunate for the Ministry of Public Service, Honorable Damas and his PS, to announce the increase of salaries of civil servants, ignoring the Salaries and Remuneration Commission that I helped to set up when I was in the Ministry of Justice, and ignoring the fact that teachers, nurses, doctors, and lots of other people working in public life require harmonization as required by the Constitution. And therefore, for the time being, I'm not the sort of minister who, when teachers say they want to go on strike, I declared it illegal. I understand the issues. You will remember, Eric, since going to the ministry, I've also been in the forefront raising the profile of education to the head of the table. Right now, as soon as Parliament resumes, I'm going to finish the law on Teacher Service Commission, in which I've also included a formula for determination of salaries for teachers. So the teachers require consideration. I think it was very unfair, very unfortunate to isolate the civil service in exclusion of other public servants who have donated their lives to the service of the country.
You're raising some two issues. I'll come back to the teachers and their grievances here. But the first thing you're saying is that you think, in your opinion, it was wrong for the Ministry of Public Service to announce what they announced in the absence of the
yes, because harmonization has not been done. Eric, I keep on wanting to remind Kenya that I facilitated the Constitution. I understand it very well, extremely well. And you remember I was also in the No campaign arising from the bombers, condemnation of the bombers' recommendation. So it's a document that I understand very well. The country wanted and voted for harmonization of remuneration and such other things. And therefore, at a time like this, when it's barely 2 years after the promulgation of the Constitution, it would have been far better that the government works together so that even whoever gets an increase understands that the others have also been considered.
Clarify something here, because my understanding was what the Minister Dalmas Otieno was saying is that we signed a deal years back in 2004, was it 2006? And this has been implemented in piecemeal. And now there's some groups like the NYS, and there's some job groups that had not received part of the agreed deal. And that's Eric, all he was saying.
Eric, I've been here with you throughout. The fact of the matter is that Teachers also had a 1997 due. Teachers also had legal notice 524 of 1997. The fact of the matter is that all those dues must now come in line with the Constitution. Harmonization.
So
all that we are saying is, why should somebody be overpaid and another one ignored? The reason the country voted so overwhelmingly, 69% of those who turned out to vote, voting yes, was because they recognized that a country that has no harmony is a country that is always on the warpath, and hence the challenges that my ministry is going to continue facing from teachers who are raising legitimate questions. I'm not saying they are entitled to 300% or whatever, although if I knew they would be able to give me the sort of education I want, I can even fight for 1,000% because I want true reforms and so on and so on. But the issue here is harmonization. Don't confuse that with dues. The other issue is constitutional implementation. You cannot purport to ignore a constitutional system that requires harmonization of salaries throughout the country, because the teacher is a human being. In fact, if you go to majority of homes, you will find that there is a civil servant from that home, and there is a teacher from that home, there is a doctor from that home, there is a nurse from that home. What are you talking about? Why not harmonize? Why should one appear to, and I'm not talking about equalization. Trust me, that is a completely different subject from harmonization. Harmonization is just the sense that you give everybody they belong. Each one is a party to the table, to the cake, and you are considering them as you consider the others.
So in your opinion, how should we have gone about this? Should we first of all say the 1997 deal, the 2004 deal, any other
no, not at all.
CBA
Not at
that
all.
has been signed?
Contrary to some people who think that I'm not a good lawyer, I'm a hell of a good lawyer. I choose my words very carefully.
You keep saying
very,
that.
Very, very, very carefully. I'm very well trained. I'm highly experienced. I'm a senior counsel, so I choose my words carefully. I am not saying that you ignore any deal. I'm simply saying your country now requires harmonization when it comes to benefits and so on, so that everybody feels that they are part of the same cocktail, part of the same salad, so that if you are a tomato, you are not taking more salt than the cabbage. If you are a cucumber, you are not taking more water, and so on and so on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is why we created the first one of its kind in the continent, Salaries and Remuneration Commission, and whose function is to seek harmonization. I will stand my ground from anybody and tell them, please harmonize your country if you really want national cohesion and integration that is real.
So what are you going to do now with the teachers, now that they've already started saying we need this done?
I have told the teachers, because you notice I'm touring schools throughout the counties right now. I've told the teachers that since they have accepted, they are the ones who demanded that we insert the Teacher Service Commission in the Constitution. We constitutionalized it and gave it special functions under Article 237. And therefore, since my going to the Ministry of Justice, it took me three weeks to produce the Teacher Service Commission bill. It is in Parliament, and it is an infrastructure for determining such things. And since it is the teachers themselves who actually called me when I was in Naivasha as Minister for Justice and said, Mutula, you do not insert TSC in the Constitution, we'll vote no. So we inserted it. And therefore, they have pleaded with them, and I'll continue saying so, that allow me to finalize that particular law. And then we use that law for purposes of determining benefits. Because you notice, even in that law, as well as in the education bill, basic education bill I'm bringing forth, I'm also going to define principals, head teachers, and such categories of people who right now are merely treated as teachers. Yet, a principal of a school, of a high school, the head teacher of a primary school is actually more than a teacher. He's a manager.
He's a manager.
He has enormous responsibilities to the students, to the parents, to the sponsors, to the government, to the Ministry of Education for implementing education policy. And therefore, they must be given special recognition. Without that special statutory recognition, you can't give them things like responsibility allowance and such other benefits. And therefore, I'm pleading with the teachers because I'm working with them in partnership and in very, very closely together, that it is far better to be patient, wait for this law to come on board, President to assent to it, and then we trigger a mechanism simultaneously with the Salaries and Remuneration Commission to put those things, all of them, up and running.
All right. Now, moving from the issue of salaries, let's talk about the number of teachers. The teachers have been agitating that they wanted 40,000 new teachers employed in this financial year. The budget comes out and the finance minister says, let's take up 10,000 new teachers. And, well, of course, we are adding now new teachers for pre-primary and the early childhood education system. But for primary and secondary, we still have a very, very poor teacher-student ratio.
Absolutely. And I've also told the teachers to be a little careful and to use the arithmetic they teach in the classrooms to calculate.
To practice it.
To practice it. Because the population of our pupils and students in primary and secondary schools is 14.5 million children. If you were to use as teacher-student ratio of 40, which is just about average, ideally I would have gone for 35. If you divide that, you will see that Kenya right now needs close to 365,000 teachers. We have only got 268. And therefore, I've been telling the teachers, because this is a fundamental area, instead of demanding 20,000, 40,000 teachers, we should advise the country, because that is the function of the Teacher Service Commission, that the requirement of teachers in this country for purposes of complying with teacher-student ratio and the provisions of the Constitution relative to education, because it is free and compulsory, you need to tell the country we need 80,000 teachers. And I'm beginning to see that percolating downstream, people beginning to understand it's not enough to do this kickstart, quick fix arrangements. For the time being, since going to the ministry, and I'm very grateful to the President and Prime Minister, as well as the ministers, I went to Cabinet and asked for more teachers. For the supplementary estimates, we were given 6 billion for recruitment of 10,000 teachers. In the estimates that now our budget, since 1st of July, I was given an additional 6 billion shillings for 10,000 teachers. So between now and the next financial year, we can recruit 20,000.
You actually teachers. Have 20,000, not 10.
Absolutely, yeah, it's 20,000. And wherever I go, because I'm being asked for teachers in every school, in every corner of the country, I'm saying it's not enough to merely ask for teachers. First of all, bring forth for data the teachers who have been trained and are at home. Bring forth the list of teachers who are currently employed by boards of governors. Because those at least have now received community acceptance as able teachers
already,
so that we can facilitate this to the Teacher Service Commission for purposes of when they start recruitment, which I expect to take place any time now that the budget is through.
So you expect that the recruitment, the 20,000 to actually come from
teachers,
to actually come from those who have already been employed by the boards of governors, just to take them over into TSC, or are you going to leave the boards?
I'm a manager myself, and I have no doubt that would be a very wise maneuver, because you are taking the Teacher Service Commission would, strictly speaking, only be taking responsibility away from the parents. You ease the burden of the parents, but at the same time you facilitate the schools who have teachers they already accept to move forward. And I'm not saying that is what Teacher Service Commission is going to do, otherwise I would be violating my own principles. We established the Teacher Service Commission as an independent constitutional body. They ought to make these decisions subject to advising the government under Article 137(3)(4) on issues pertaining to teachers
by themselves.
By themselves. But I would go that way, and I'm encouraging the local communities I meet, and so far they are unanimous. That is a very good way to go, because the boards of governors have already recruited teachers. They can't be called teachers unless they are registered with the Teacher Service Commission, and therefore that would be a very fast method of achieving this. Needless to say, you can see a challenge there. The reverse side of that is that that process is not necessarily inclusive or competitive as is required by our
Indeed.
Article 10 of the Constitution, because we are not allowing those who are not yet employed by boards to participate
in the recruitment process.
Or all that I'm saying is please engage Mutula Kilonzo in debate on these issues, not on what do you call them? Miniskirts. Talk to me about these
on other stuff.
Yeah,
on other fundamental issues.
On fundamental issues, so that you can. I ought to be told. For example, what the country prefers in the selection of these 20,000 teachers, and above all, how they will be assigned to counties, because we have 47 counties. Because it must be proportional, it must be relative to need, but at the same time, each county must feel that it has received a piece of the cake.
Let's ask people to engage with us on that. You can, of course, participate on this discussion on social media, as always. If you log on to Facebook, Capital FM Kenya, or on my Facebook page, Eric Latif, and also on Twitter, the hashtag is Talk360, Talk360. What would you like to discuss with the Education Minister, Mutula Kilonzo, now that he is here in the studio with us? We can't run away from the issue of miniskirts, but before we come to the issue of miniskirts, let's talk about the quality of education and the system of education that we have in Kenya, the 844 system. A lot of hue and cry. Many people saying, yes, they support the 844 system. Others are saying, it's about time we scrapped this system in its entirety. And in fact, there's a debate going on people are submitting their input on this issue of the 844.
Eric, I'm very proud that since my arrival at the ministry, I've more or less killed that debate. It is ridiculous to be looking at your child from an arithmetic point of view, because what is important is content. And therefore, the work that I am doing in the ministry is to create content, to come up with a policy. We have finalized a policy paper on education for 2012 to replace the 2005 pre-constitution policy paper. And all that I'm telling everybody who cares to listen, and luckily nobody has objected to my approach, is that we will leave the actual definition of how many years a child will spend at any level to the cabinet secretary. However, there is a big lobby and a big wave now moving in saying, let us introduce a minimum of 2 years in pre-primary and leave 844 the way it is. I refuse to comment on these issues because I think it is like putting the horse in front of the cart and asking it to pull. What I have put forth are policies to implement the Constitution. You remember, Eric, in your time and mine, the old Constitution never mentioned education anywhere. Now the education as a principle is covered in more than 10 articles of the Constitution. If you add Article 4 on multi-party democracy, Article 9 on the national anthem, Article 27 on equality, then you take 43, which expressly provides for your right to education, 53 for youth, 54 for people with disabilities, 53 for children, youth is in 55, the elder members of society 57, marginalized in 56. And it is expressly provided, and the word education is repeated time and time again. So therefore, my work right now, a lot of people are calling it reform. I am also calling it reform sometimes. But the real word for this is constitutional implementation, to make sure that you capture the concept that Kenyan people had in voting yes for the Constitution. And therefore, 844 is, for me, a supplementary subject to be determined after you approve the bills that we have formulated. And luckily, I'm working very well with my sister, Honorable Kamar, Minister for Higher Education. We have collapsed the policy to cover both basic education as well as higher education. We have also finalized draft on university education, TVET, science and technology. All that is on board. In fact, they are out of our offices. They are with the parliamentary committees, Mr. Charles Nashai of CSC, the Honorable Attorney General. They are actually delaying us.
They're the ones who are holding it.
Yeah, they are. But in my case, for 2 months, they are holding them.
Once all these laws actually come into place, just break it down to us. Are we going to have a system akin to 844, or are we going to have a system that is a bit different? Is it the curriculum that's going to change, or is it the number of years that you spend in primary, in secondary, in university that change? What is it primarily that needs to change?
The number of years you spend in school are already predetermined by the Constitution. First of all, if you remember, we say that life begins at conception.
Yep.
In Schedule 4, we have gone further to assign the function of early childhood educational development to county governments. And the national government has been given responsibility for policy on education and so on. So, and then in Article 260, we have defined the child as a person 0 to 18. So, once you accept 53 saying each child is entitled to free and compulsory basic education, it means 0
to 18 years, you have basic.
So the years are set. And you'll be surprised, we are ahead of America, we are ahead of India, we are ahead of all countries in the world, because most other countries leave it at 14, some at 16, like the US.
So
the years are set.
Does basic education cover university?
No, basic education goes only up to high school, 18. A child, 18. Of course, if you have a university that can take children who are 16, 17, they would also be covered, because the basic, free and compulsory basic education is for the child, and the child is defined in 0 to 18. So for the time being, if a university admits anybody who is below 18, they will have to offer free and compulsory basic education. But for the time being, since the years are set, again, that's why I'm using the approach that I'm using, which has been approved. And I have quality officers in this ministry, really distinguished, able professors and educationists. So we are saying, okay, you have 18 years. What will you teach in 18 years? What should a girl child who is 18 years on her birthday look like? What should she know?
Right.
And how would she behave? What is her attitude towards our society, our community, our life, and the rest of it? And so you notice, that's why I'm like a fish in water. I'm enjoying myself. Because determining what an 18-year-old should look like is not as difficult as determining how many years you should spend in primary or in secondary or in pre-primary. My work is just to say an 18-year-old Kenyan girl should look like this, should know this
much,
should have this attitude towards our country.
And this skill.
And these are the skills she should have.
Right.
Now, the work of the cabinet secretary, the guys who will take over from me next year, or whenever you have elections, is to determine at what level, rather at what particular period will be spent in pre-primary.
In primary.
But may I also tell you this? Once the laws are enacted, if God willing, because I strongly believe God is in control of all this, if my program of getting these laws enacted by end of August latest, by end of September, I will come back to Capital FM, and now we will discuss 844 or 266 or 111. We'll discuss the arithmetic.
Now, let's talk about the curriculum then. It's been a very long time since we last reviewed the curriculum.
It has taken forever, 1968.
Now, since 1968, 2012, we still have the same curriculum. What are you doing about that?
Oh, I'm working day and night. Can you see how tired I look, even on a Sunday afternoon? We have designed...
Well, you still look young.
Oh, I feel very good. I must admit, I feel very good for my birthday, subject to the calculator. Let me say this, that again, on lending in the Ministry of Education, I came across Section 23 of the existing Education Act, under which Kenya Institute of Education is established, and it is the one which sets curricula. Can you imagine we are living with 1968 principles?
Yet you've had a KIE these years.
It's a terrible joke. So what I have now done is I have drafted a standalone legal infrastructure called Kenya Institute of Curricular Development.
So this is going to be different from KIE?
It's going to be different.
Why do we still need KIE then?
No, but it will collapse into the Kenya Institute of Curricular Development.
Okay.
The Prime Minister's office, I see some people claiming that he's not a reformer. They have no idea. Among the leaders at the national level, quite apart from the president who has supported me and defended me all the way, the Prime Minister is the only politician in Kenya who writes to me, seeks consultations on my laws and sends me comments. In the issue of Kenya Institute of Curricular Development, he has written me a 4-page letter suggesting this, suggesting the other, and so on. I've not had a chance to.
So he's in agreement in principle with KID.
He's in agreement with the transformation. He's totally in agreement. The others are claiming to be reformers, but they're out there. I don't even think they have heard. And he has also sent comments on the basic education bill. He's the one who called me together with Honorable Kamar to his office and demanded that we collapse the policies so that we don't have two sessional papers, two policies on education. He has been very supportive. Although, of course, I must say it is not just on education. He used to do the same when I was in Justice, same when I was in Nairobi Metropolitan. A lot of people forget I was a reformer in my Metropolitan, in Justice, and now in education.
You've carried
and I know the only other one, apart from the President, Prime Minister, is Honorable Musalia. Honorable Musalia will telephone me once in a while, and also on occasion when the Prime Minister is not in, he chairs the Cabinet Subcommittee on my sector, whichever sector I am at, and therefore it takes opportunity to feed into the reforms that we are doing.
We'll talk about the Prime Minister and what you think of him. I actually can tell that you think very highly of the Prime Minister.
I think highly of a lot of people. And my comments are not, even when you come to it, as you say, Eric, it's not personalization. I'm telling you facts.
You'll be mentioning facts.
Yes.
We will get to that. First of all, let's talk about the exam system.
Yes.
A lot of emphasis has been placed on examinations, where we are seeing students are being grilled to pass an exam. Teachers in class are telling you, this is how you answer this question if you're asked about it. Don't just not get this information, you may use it in life. We're seeing students and pupils committing suicide because they think that they have failed. People are not...
To make matters worse, pupils and students have to go to school on Saturdays, on Sundays, waking up
even
at 4 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah, there's somebody who's posted a comment here and asking, why does a
really
standard 2 student have to go to school on a Saturday
that
for
is
tuition?
Really a joke. I mean, it's really a joke, and I'm happy that is an area which I'm going to put to a stop. I'm criminalizing holiday tuition or extra tuition.
By criminalizing, what do you mean?
Oh, I'm going to make it an offense for any teacher, any person, to seek to interfere with the right of a child to be a child. Because I consider that if you are sending a child away from holiday to go and do tuition or delaying the child until 8 o'clock at night, you are really, truly interfering with that child's right to be a child. And therefore, I'm setting up a system whereby it is understood that a child will go to school time, and other time is for him to spend time with his parents, to spend time with his peers, to play, to jump, to climb trees and come down, hopefully without falling.
Without breaking an arm.
So that is another area, because
so
again, as soon as I walked in the ministry, these issues were clear. Kenya National Examinations Council, you remember I just walked in when Parliament was demanding me to explain why examinations papers for more than nearly 2,000 students in the northeastern region of the country were cancelled, and many other areas. And what I found is unacceptable.
So when you say you
a situation where our children are forced to cram and cram and cram, so that even by the time they finish high school, if you offer a child a novel to read or an ordinary book to read, they don't like reading, because for them it was like punishment.
You're reading it just to pass or fail.
Just to pass or fail. And therefore, I have now developed the Kenya National Examination Bill 2012, a complete departure from the past, where I'm also criminalizing those grown-up people, whoever they are, who have the capacity to steal examination papers, or capacity to steal or buy or leak answers to questions, give them to the students. They go and insert them because every student is anxious to pass. When they are found out, the crooks, the criminals who stole the paper, go scot-free. They enjoy
the student
money
is punished.
The student is punished.
And punished for
this
life.
This is another area where the Prime Minister's office is suggesting I don't call it Kenya National Examination Council. I call it Kenya National Assessment Institute or something of the sort.
Okay.
I'll discuss it with
So you remove the word examination from
No, I can't. I'm afraid this is another area where I'll tell the Prime Minister no. Because you know me, I tell people no to their face. I'm going to tell him no. It must still be examinations
Why
order
the
to
obsession with
factor.
examination?
For the simple reason, the rest of the world calls them examinations, wherever you go. So if you just call it an assessment, nobody will know. When a Kenyan student is offering he or himself to Rwanda or Tanzania or Britain for work, they will be asked their results. I don't want them to be saying they are offering assessment. They ought to give examination.
Examination as examination.
But we factor in. You'll be surprised right now as we speak on Friday, Thursday, and Friday, Saturday. We have educationists, which you don't even cover. I don't know what is wrong with
because you don't tell us.
Capital FM. What do you mean? We don't tell you. We tell you. There is an ongoing workshop, and it is going to continue over the weekend, next weekend, between my ministry, Kenya Institute of Education, assist now, and the National Cohesion and Integration Commission. Why? Because what is the purpose of a curricula? If the curricula produces people, young people, who at the drum of a pin will take pangas and knives and stones to throw at others in violence that has no meaning whatsoever, and where the product you produce from schools thinks, I'm a Mukamba, you are a Luo, therefore I hate you. Just for that reason, you are Kikuyu, I'm Kalenjin, and I dislike you, and so on. So what we are doing is the curricula we are going to give this country is the sort of curricula that enables you to understand Article 10 of the Constitution, that we are one, that the national anthem is one, and that you go through examinations even as you go through others. In addition, and I'm glad, Eric, you are raising this point, in addition, we are going to convert core curricular activities into certifiable skills, so that if you are a head boy in a school, you ought to have a certificate showing that you have...
You get recognition for that.
You have skills for leadership.
For leadership.
Yeah. Don't you think? Am I right? Clap for me, man. Then supposing you are good in music,
you also get recognition for that.
You get recognition, some sort of a certificate. Supposing you're good in athletics, and so on and so on and so on.
Indeed, very many parents, I'm sure, will be happy to that, because people keep talking about their kids going to school and they appear not to be getting what they're being taught in class, but they're very good in other things.
They are very good in other things.
So
and yet they cannot prove it.
You'll never tell
until
anyone.
They leave high school and join the prisons. That's when they start...
Or police.
That's when they start winning New York Marathon. And that's when you start recognizing them. And yet...
And for musicians going nowhere.
Absolutely. And other artists like painters and... because this country has enormous
public speakers.
Public speakers.
Unless you become
so therefore, they have been calling it until my arrival co-curricular activities, which is ridiculous. I mean, if you ask me what co-curricular is, I'm not quite sure I understand. This is talent. Why can't you just call it talent, Eric? Why can't you just call it talent?
You want to narrow it down to what it is.
Yeah, to what it is. It's talent. This person is gifted. He may not add 1 and 1 without getting 11. But if you give him a pole vault, he will jump as high as you can get. He may not pronounce English well, but if you put it on a starting block in an athletics field,
nobody will catch him.
Nobody will catch him. And we call it talent. And the Constitution now demands those things. So therefore, you can see I have been busy.
Quite busy, I see. Exam cheating. What are you doing about that? Number one, let me ask this question directly. We have very many instances when examinations are coming up. When the day that the examinations begin, we always have this story, and we have this in our editorial meetings at Capital FM. Teachers, pupils rather, complain that they have reported to the examination room and they found that they are not registered. Yet they had paid, they had all these things that happened. And I keep asking this question, don't we have provincial education officers, district education officers? Isn't there a chain in such a way that we know such and such a school has standard 8 pupils and therefore they must be registered for the exams?
Those things are not there. We are introducing a reporting mechanism, a regular reporting mechanism. I'll tell you the reason. When I walked in and started demanding money for free primary education, if you remember, and free day secondary education, you really don't have a report showing how many whether the students who were reported last year are still in the same school, if you follow what I'm saying. Yeah. So we are introducing a quarterly, we agreed with the Treasury, and I'm very happy my people are already working on it. We are introducing a regular quarterly reporting mechanism, preferably online. so that we can know how many students are in each class, how many of them were there last year and the last quarter and so on. Because why? In fact, you can easily say there is fraud, because you will find a school had 100 pupils last year. They are asking the same capitation in 2012, yet the students may have moved. Parents transferred them. Some of them dropped out. Like in some areas, I went to Masinga in Ukambani and I was told they are dropping out to go and just collect sand in the rivers and sell it.
But the school is asking for the same amount.
The school is still asking for the same amount. So there is a more fundamental reason to require regular reporting of statistics in schools than merely this issue of registration for examinations. Because if the regular reporting is there, the issue does not arise. You'll be surprised, in my own constituency, we found a school head who actually had collected the registration fees and had consumed it, and the students were not registered.
So what happens in such an instance?
I obviously, in my usual manner, I demanded that he be prosecuted. I haven't checked how far the case has gone because I've been busy. But I know several other areas where that sort of thing you will find. And it's unacceptable. It's completely unacceptable. And the only way to monitor it is to have records in front of your computer, your laptop, your iPad. You'll be surprised. This week, beginning tomorrow, I'm going to issue iPads to all senior officers in my ministry. We are going to interlink them so that the information is flowing smoothly. Everybody knows where everybody is. You can see what everybody is saying, if it be speeches or otherwise. And also, you noticed His Excellency the President 2 weeks ago launching the e-learning.
Yes.
And the fact that we have now supplied computers to 5,000 schools, and later this year, after I finish with the bills, I'm going to primary schools also. The fact of the matter is we are going to put all these schools online. For your information, because of the cable, the optic cable, that this country is now ahead of many other nations. I am waiting for it to be formally launched, because so long as you are within 70 kilometers of the cable, you can be able to supply that or that material online. So these things are coming. The future is here.
You have quite a lot of work cut out for you, and
I have.
not much time. We'll be moving into the politics of the day.
But before you wind up, the thing is, remember the famous saying, if you really want something well done, you give it to the busiest person. They know how to manage time. This I am going to do. I have no doubt in my mind. Busy Bee knows how to manage his time. Absolutely.
People are sending a lot of congratulatory messages for you. Happy birthday, Minister Kilonzo.
Oh, thank you.
Very many of them on Twitter and on Facebook.
Yes.
And somebody is saying happy birthday, Mini Star. So now Mini Star, can we talk about the mini skirt?
Yeah, I mean, I got so surprised because Eric, I was in a church-sponsored school. There were beautiful girls. You should see the clip. They have red skirts, white blouses, and red sweaters. And these skirts are just about around the knee below, an inch or two. And obviously, the issue arose, and I said, I want all secondary school girls to be dressed like Chelelis here. And you can see for yourself. And there was a bishop present. And then all of a sudden, and I say, I agree with the children in Muranga who were protesting these ridiculous...
The skirts were long.
It's not length. Some of them look like sackcloth, wide, the girl doesn't have confidence. Then, of course, some people in the media, present company exempted, picked it up and said Mutula was supporting miniskirts. I hear now they are called to Mutulas or something like that. Yes. But even when the miniskirt, which is not modern, if you remember, it was a 1960s, 70s trend, even when it was there, and at that time I was looking for a wife, I never dated a girl in a miniskirt, because a miniskirt really leaves very little to imagine. It's a ridiculous piece of cloth, and intelligent women who want to show off their legs or something nowadays wear shorts, not miniskirts. And therefore, it's ridiculous for anybody to suggest that I am encouraging miniskirts in schools. So to make matters worse, when I said we are not producing nuns, a lot of people don't seem to realize Mutula is a serious supporter of nuns in this country, partly because they are there in health centers, running schools, and so on and so on. But they only become nuns after age 18. In fact, if you find the majority of Kenyan women who become nuns, they first of all go through normal schooling until age 18.
Yeah.
And that is when they determine to devote their life to the Lord, and I salute that. Otherwise, the nun uniform is beautiful uniform, but for its function. In the education system I'm trying to run for you, I'm looking for something slightly different. I'm looking for managers of banks. I'm looking for insurance executives. I'm looking for industry leaders. I'm looking for quality girl child product.
I'm sure you're looking for bishops and nuns as well.
Yeah, maybe, but the bishops look very able in convincing Kenyan women to join the seminary or whatever. And therefore, that's why I said we are not producing nuns, because they are produced by the church. For purposes of my education, I want to produce, ideally, although some will go to Christian faith and Christian activities, but I'm looking at Vision 2030. I'm looking at economic development. I'm looking for girls who, when they are in class, feel that they are girls, that they are smart, that they are confident, which makes learning even easier. You can't teach.
Let's get it clear then. When you said you supported the action, I mean, what the girls of Rwadia High School, Girls High School, were agitating for. What do you mean? What were you supporting?
I was supporting their demand to be clothed in a decent, smart manner, not because they were not asking for miniskirts. It's only the media which has created the impression that they were asking for miniskirts.
What are they asking?
I dare you to go with me to that
Rwadia.
school, to Rwadia. No, they will tell you plainly that you are insulting them. They wouldn't want miniskirts because they are useless, even in the workplace.
Do they want a body-hugging skirt?
They want decent. I don't know how to explain decent to you because you are not a woman. But if you were to ask a girl, she would tell you what a decent skirt looks like. 1 inch below the knee or at the knee point, and a skirt that enables her to walk and feel that she's human, she's Kenyan, she has certain rights, that she is confident. Just like the boys. You notice what the boys are wearing, quality trousers and stuff like that. So therefore, it's a debate created by people who are so scared of women empowerment that the only way they can escape the debate for empowerment of women is to claim that rather girls are asking for miniskirts, because they are not. Nobody wears miniskirts anymore, and those who do don't go to school or come to the workplace. I walked in and there are ladies working in Capital FM. None of them is wearing a miniskirt or so. and so therefore, let me repeat again, I have very high regard for the Kenyan nun, for the Christian faith, for the morality, for the morals that they advance. But that is not what I'm looking for in education, because the church will look after the training in convents of those Kenyan women after 18 who determine to go to the nunnery, to that sort of enterprise. I want to produce confident, smart Kenyan women who can walk into a bank and take it over, who can run a factory.
And they can run the country as well.
And they can run the country. Look at Honorable Mother. Do you expect Honorable Mother in a miniskirt, for heaven's sake?
Well, we can take this discussion as much as we want, but you're a lawyer. You're gonna take it. You're gonna choose your words very carefully, and which is what you've just done right here. So everybody else who's saying peeling off the skirt by Mutula, wearing the kamutulas, well, you got your answer. That's what he meant.
I'm not interested, and I did not intend.
Not interested.
Nor would I ever want to pass a slur on nuns. In fact, the bishops who are asking me to apologize are the ones who have not understood that my function as Minister for Education is not to produce nuns. It cannot be. My function is to produce 2030 Vision 2030 girl child who are empowered. Because I put this together, and this is very important, Eric. You must allow me to say this. I'm putting this demand for empowerment together with the demand for sanitary towers for our girl child. Because every month, 3, 4, 5 days, the Kenyan girl child who has no access to sanitary towers suffers enormous inconvenience in the classroom, to the advantage of the boys and the disadvantage of the girl child. And therefore, allow me to say that in my understanding, empowering the Kenyan girl child as opposed to dehumanizing her by putting her in sackcloth is a goal I share with Kenyan nuns, because I know they are running schools. Look at Precious Blood School in
very many
Kilonzo,
schools
in my
across
county.
the country.
Many of them.
Let's
so
move
much
into
to say.
politics as we're running out of time.
Yeah.
You said you think Prime Minister Raila Odinga is a reformer. You find him a reformer. Now, there's a book, you know, of course, the book Peeling Back the Mask by Miguna, which says, and in fact, he was here last week, he said, Raila Odinga is a disaster waiting to happen in Kenya. He shouldn't be president.
You know, Eric, I'm surprised at you, because if I wanted a character reference for a Kenyan politician, Miguna is not the man I would ask. Let me repeat. He is not a suitable character reference, because I've worked with him. Prime Minister Raila Odinga, in fact, the greatest weakness I've detected is lack of judgment in appointing Miguna to his legal advisor. Because Miguna is neither a quality lawyer nor an advisor.
He said he's a very good lawyer.
Wapi wewe.
I dare
I've
you.
worked with him. You know, Prime Minister Raila appointed Miguna to the liaison, to be liaison officer for ODM in the Coalition Management Committee.
Yes.
President Kibaki appointed
Professor
Kibwana. Do you know those two guys could never agree on a comma? And whenever I wanted to bring gridlock, I would just recommend a word, a single word like A-N-D, end, and they would fight over it forever. And you know, the reason I say Miguna cannot be a character reference is because I told the Prime Minister and President and the President in their hearing, in their presence in Mombasa, if you want your grand coalition to work, you will have to change Miguna and Kibwana. And in fact, as a result from that meeting, that committee died. It hasn't met, it doesn't work, and it cannot work. The other reason I say so is because I noticed he described something about James Orengo shopping. And yet, what had taken us to Geneva was a very serious issue of human rights. If you remember Professor Alston and so on and so on, the government sent me to head a delegation in Geneva in the United Nations Human Rights Commission. And ODM decided at that point I was only speaking for PNU. So they appointed James Orengo to come with me. And of course, God forbid he was with Miguna. So what does Miguna end up describing? Not the enormous groundwork we did until 3 a.m. in the morning to collapse PNU and ODM points of view on Kenya's human rights for presentation of one point of view to the human rights. He doesn't describe that. He describes a shopping. I wouldn't go shopping with Miguna. But having said that, he is entitled to his opinion.
Do you remember ever having that conversation with him there?
About
James Orengo's shopping?
Yes, I did. We spoke about it, because when we went to the Bryony shop where we were with Miguna, but we left James Orengo there. I don't know how much he ended up paying. But Bryony is not a cheap shop. Some of the suits can go up to $10,000. And James Orengo has a lot of taste. And I don't think merely because he's supposedly bought an expensive suit, because I don't know whether he ended up buying. In fact, thereafter, James Orengo came back to me, and then I took him to a shop where we bought books. And I was amazed at its reach, his intellectual reach as to the books that he was looking for, unlike $1,000 shirt. I don't know whether he bought them. But Bryony is expensive. If you go to Yaya Senda, Little Red, you will be surprised. A suit going up for 700,000 shillings. It's no big deal. If you can afford it, do so. But Mutula will not spend that kind of money on clothing.
Although he can afford it.
Oh, I can. But I wouldn't want to do that.
Miguna says that you're a very good crammer of the law.
Yeah. So what is wrong with that? I understand the law.
You're like the people we were talking about. You just cram.
Oh, no.
To pass the exam.
Do you see me holding a law book? And I'm repeating the Constitution to you.
You crammed it.
But you know, my cramming comes together with a lot of other skills. It's not the sort of cramming that is in 844. Because like now you can see I'm wearing a leather jacket, I'm short-sleeved shirt, casual trousers. I'm easy. If you are 844, you wouldn't be able to dress the way I am. You would be carrying whatever. If I don't want to begrudge Miguna's opinion of how I acquire skills about remembering what I read, but I have I have the privilege, and I have never said this to anybody in the media. I have what is called an endemic memory. If I read something once, I can remember it for a long time. And that is one of the skills I've used in court to win cases. I don't have to cram. I am not surprised Miguna thinks I cram. Miguna doesn't seem to realize that there are some people with special gifts, so that if they read something once, I can repeat it to you 20 years later. And the fact of the matter is, you confuse that with cramming, you are the one who is in a terrible mess. When I was in high school, I was also taught speed reading. Speed reading is where you scan the page and your eyes don't move, but you are required to take a very short time per page. And then you are examined as to how much you have retained out of what you have scanned.
Out of what you've seen on the page.
Speed reading.
Right.
And I was trained for 3 years by an American Peace Corps teacher. And that is also a skill I use. If you call that cramming, who am I to persuade you otherwise? And finally, Miguna is far too young to know people like Mutula. I've never been in class with him, and he has no idea. And I do not know where he got that information about my ability to cram. I would rather defer to my fellow students who I went to school with, Judge Wake, people like Okello of Diamond Trust Bank. Yeah. They would be able to tell you whether Mutula is a crammer, or a strategist, because that is what I am.
Well, strategist Mutula, are you still in the Wiper Democratic movement?
Oh yes. Where else do I go? I'm not a
because it appeared at some point.
I'm not a grasshopper. I'm not a political grasshopper.
What was happening at some point was you seemed to be giving public opinion that was going contrary to what the leadership of your party was thinking.
I still
was gravitating towards.
I'm not quite sure they
didn't kick you out.
They can't dare kick me out because I form political parties. It is not political parties that form me. You are forgetting, Eric, that even the formation of ODM was my work. The present PNU coalition, I'm the one who drafted the documents. I don't even think they know where they are. I have their custody. And I have acted for political parties, nearly all political parties, including Ford Kenya, and so on and so on, for the last continuously since 1979. So therefore, if you were to remove me from a political party because of my opinion, even if that opinion was support for miniskirt, you would be yourself violating the principles of freedom of speech, freedom of expression of opinion. They wouldn't dare kick me out.
But you're no longer the spokesman. Are you still the spokesman?
Oh, I am. I'm still Secretary General until the next elections. Unless, of course, somebody has told you something different. Have you interviewed a Wiper person?
Well, I haven't actually interviewed. I should have interviewed. I should interview very soon.
The only group I don't belong to is G7 or KKK.
Now, that's where my question was actually leading. Because Wiper is associating itself with the G7.
Not at all.
Here is a
we have never made... I'm the Secretary General of Wiper, man. And
so Wiper is not in G7?
Listen to me. Mutula Kilonzo is in G7. Wiper, as a political party, we have never made... they have more or less sidelined him, which is something I told him from the beginning. You follow these guys, they are going to drop you like a hot potato at some point. And of course, he didn't listen to me. But right now, he has shown a complete reversal of that approach. He's building the party, he's wearing Wiper shirts and so on, and giving the Wiper sign. And although it isn't raining very hard, but the fact of the matter is that...
rain or shine, you still need an umbrella.
You still need an umbrella. And my advice to my party leader has always been, build your party, show your backbone, show your principles, show what you stand for, advocate it, fight for it, and then you can seek friends, associates, and coalition partners. But you can't start the other way around. But why are you asking me about Wiper? You called me on my birthday, away from home, from my family, to come and ask me about Wiper politics. You are not a member of Wiper yourself?
Because you're the Secretary General of Wiper.
Okay.
You're the only man who's qualified to talk on behalf of Wiper. What's your beef with G7?
It's a non-starter. Even they themselves have begun to say that they will go their different ways and then join together in the runoff, which is just tribalization of Kenya's presidency, something I've fought against for so many years. And I will continue fighting it. I think it is ridiculous to say so-and-so is bad because he doesn't come from my tribe. So-and-so is bad because my tribe doesn't support him. I think the time to raise the agendas like what you have been asking me about education, implementation of the constitution, Miguna, that is the way to go. Unemployment, insecurity. Surely, why can't you take such a platform? Why is it that you can form a coalition just to ring fence a particular individual or particular community? Do you expect me, as a senior counsel, one of the ranking lawyers of this country, to come here on a Sunday afternoon on my birthday and tell you that I support a tribal alliance, a group whose intentions, when you listen to them, is merely to ring fence and close in another individual? Those days are gone. I've been the Minister for Justice, and even if I wasn't, I was your negotiator at Serena, mediating the peace that brought this country to peace. I'm the one who crafted the coalition agreement between President Kibaki and Vice President Kilonzo in order to bring stability to the country. Do you expect me at my age to support a tribal grouping, even if that tribal grouping is a Mukamba group? Because the fact that I speak Kikamba is purely God's grace and an accident. I could have been born anywhere in the world. God decided to put me in Ukambani.
So you see, G7 is basically coalescing against Raila Odinga.
That's my perception of it. I've never had any different agenda. And when they have it, they will come and tell me, because I'm Secretary General of WIPA, and they ought to sit me down and tell me what they stand for. What is the objective? Is it to remove insecurity? Is it to bring peace? Is it to do what? So therefore, I'm not saying that they should not oppose Raila. For heaven's sake, if he wants to be president, he must be prepared to be opposed. Yeah. But I will not, and I'm happy to see my successor, Honorable Eugene, taking the same position I'm taking. And a political alliance whose only objective is to lock out an individual or community is unacceptable to me. It has always been unacceptable to me. In fact, that is what brought us to our knees in 2007. If you remember, one of my reasons for advising my party leader, His Excellency the Vice President, to join President Kibaki was that it was emerging that the ODM was merely looking at President Kibaki as purely a Kikuyu or from the Kikuyu community. That I cannot accept. And so I told Kilonzo, no. You cannot. You must create balance.
This was not part of the pre-election strategy for ODM Kenya?
No.
You know that whole issue of Tapita Katikatia, wasn't this what you guys had planned? Like you're saying, these guys are going to have a deadlock and we are the ones who are going to be the tiebreakers.
I can tell you that. At some point, whoever wants to be president of Kenya will have to talk to WIPA.
So WIPA is still the kingmaker?
Oh, yes. And I'm telling you a secret. Trust me, you only need to do arithmetic, the one we teach in our schools. And you will begin to realize the more you isolate Vice President Kilonzo or his political party, the more you elevate him to a kingmaker. At some point, whether you like it or not,
he will become a kingmaker.
There's no question.
Looking at all the candidates that we have so far, Raila Odinga, Uhuru Kenyatta,
you either become king or kingmaker.
Eugene Omalwa, Peter Kenneth,
they will have to talk
Professor
to us.
Ole Kiyapi.
They will have to
Do you think we have a good selection from which to pick a good president?
No, you don't have a good selection.
Out of the candidates,
they are not talking about the issues that
none of them
really matter even to you, Eric.
Not Rafael Tuju, not Martha Karua, not Professor James Ole Kiyapi.
The only thing they have spoken about education, I've seen two MPs, one of them a wiper, talking about miniskirt that I never spoke about. They have no clue. The unemployment, insecurity, the implementation of the Katiba, the problems dealing with the youth, the school system, education system itself, funding sanitary towers and so on and so on. Do you see them talk about them? Obviously, because when you are in those rallies, you are just there on hype. You don't have a very good comprehensive choice.
Mheshimiwa Mutula Kilonzo, happy birthday once again.
Asante.
And thank you very much for sparing your birthday to come and talk to us on Talk 360. I'm going to give you a moment just to give us your closing remarks, your parting shot. What would you like to tell Kenya? Whether you want to pick the issue of education, whether you want to pick the issue of politics, whether you want to pick the issue of justice in Kenya, post-election violence, like conflict, The Hague, whatever it is you want to say.
Well, I would just like Kenyans to familiarize themselves with Article 43 and Article 53(2)(7) on education for our youth and so on, and also to internalize Chapter 6 of the Constitution, because I remember telling you, fourthly, that persons charged with crimes against humanity should not offer themselves as candidates for the country. If you look at the Constitution, you look at the national anthem under Article 9, Kenya istahili heshima, justice be our shield and defender, and you consider all those facts. And now the fact that the offences, the trials start on 10th of April, I want to dare you that if the elections are on 3rd of March, 4th of March, because of the structures we put in place in the Constitution, by 10th of April, we would not even have completed the setting up of government, cabinet, and so on and so on. So I tell you these things. You don't like them very much. And sometimes you ask me to apologize. Tell the bishops I have no apology, because I love the nuns and their uniforms. But that is not my objective in education.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Asante.
Have a good week. My name is Eric Latif.
Asante.
It has been Mheshimiwa Mutula Kilonzo, the Minister for Education, the MP from Mboni. You want to run for governor or senator? Or I know not.
My
president.
people are talking about senator.
Your people?
Yeah.
And what do you talk about?
Mutula Kilonzo.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to finish reforms in education.
Okay.
And then sometimes by end of August, I will tell you. But chances are that I will go by the wishes of my public. I am receiving enormous pressure to run for senator for Makueni County. I think it's a job I can do well. But for the time being, I don't want... elections are 7 months away. And therefore, I have not announced. When I announce, you will hear.
Okay.
Asante sana.
All the best.
Thank you.
Talk 360 with Latif.